Thanks, guys. All right, folks, let's talk today about the legend of Richard Poncher. Let's go ahead and show his image right now at the outset here. Richard Poncher. He was a Hollywood country club type, a rich guy. Lived in a Hollywood mansion type of environment, and he was madly in love with Marilyn Monroe. Marilyn Monroe is buried in a kind of a tiered series of grave sites in a Hollywood cemetery. Let's go ahead and show that image right now. Now, very simply, on Marilyn's grave there, it just says Marilyn Monroe, 1926 to 1962. Now, buried to Marilyn's left, as we look at her from as it was in the image I just showed you, to her immediate left. That square with all the little black marks on it. I'm not exactly sure what all those little black marks are, but that will be Hugh Hefner's spot, appropriately, since Hefner and Marilyn Monroe were the ones who helped launch Playboy magazine #1, and from that eventually the much of the big Playboy empire. But so appropriately, Hugh Hefner will be buried near to her. Now, the spot above Marilyn Monroe was supposed to go to Joe DiMaggio, who, as many of you might recollect, was Marilyn's husband at one time. Let's show their image. And then they had their falling out and their divorce. And then DiMaggio put this spot up for sale to Richard Poncher. Now, Poncher didn't simply get that spot, but he made a request of his wife at the time of his demise, Richard Poncher's demise, so he was to be buried in that spot above Marilyn, face down, so that he could be facing Marilyn Monroe for eternity at that gravesite. Okay, true story. And Poncher's wife honored his wishes. She indeed had him buried there upon his death. And indeed the entire casket was inverted, so that Poncher would be facing toward Marilyn. And to the best of my knowledge, he's still in that position today. I think the last news account I saw was about 5 years old, but as the latest thing that I've seen news-wise about this, he's still there. But the story doesn't quite end there, because I guess Mr. Poncher's wife, how is she supposed to feel? Here's this wife of this man who's professing this eternal love for some other woman. So you just wonder how his wife felt about that. Probably, I'm guessing not the greatest, right? But anyway. But it didn't end there, because I guess Poncher's wife needed like over $1 million to pay off their Beverly Hills home. So she put that spot up for sale. And she was going to just have her husband relocated and buried somewhere else, and give that spot to whoever the highest bidder was. I heard the bidding went up to over $3 million, $3.4 million, something like that. I believe it was to a Japanese businessman, was supposed to be the deal. But the deal fell through. There was some problem apparently with making the payments or paying for it, and so the deal fell through. And the offer was up to other buyers, but last I heard, like I said, nothing's ever come of it as far as I know. And her husband is still there, buried upside down, facing toward Maryland. But the intrepid Mr. Poncher, notwithstanding, you can admire the guy for his imaginative plan, and it was carried out. But even with this Mr. Poncher, you know who that spot above Maryland really belongs to. You know who really should have that spot. Hey, JFK. Because the JFK and Marilyn Monroe had a thing going for a while also.
Oh, where can my baby be? The Lord took her away from me. She's gone to heaven, so I.
And talk about your eternal flame. At first I was thinking this story was kind of a Hollywood trivial thing, but then I began to realize actually it does tie in a lot to what's going on really in the world today, especially if you tie JFK into it, obviously. But as we've discussed in some of our previous presentations, let me get the microphone moving here. Let's quickly review some of the stuff we've kind of touched on before and how it ties in to the Richard Poncher story and the Marilyn Monroe JFK story. So you notice, guys, I took the liberty of drawing in the continent of Atlantis, the lost continent of Atlantis, which sank under that ocean somewhere to the tune of 11,000, 12,000 years ago, after just a massive earthquake. Think about the worst earthquake that California has ever seen and multiply that by like 50 or more. That gives you an idea, because this entire landmass sank. But up until that time, Atlantis just had linked pretty much the landmasses of the world. It linked to the Americas, to Europe, Africa, Egypt, which is a big deal at the time, Egypt, and all the way, actually, to the Orient. And we know that because many of the pagan religions that were practiced all over the world in ancient times had a lot of characteristics in common. And a lot of the common roots of all those pagan religion characteristics can be dated back to the influence of Atlantis and the presence of the Atlantean landmass that used to be there. But the tie-in is, JFK, as we mentioned before, was assassinated by the secret societies, more specifically the Freemasons, here at an outdoor Freemason temple here at Dallas. And the secret societies, of course, follow the old pagan Luciferian teachings that date back many thousands of years, back to the times of Atlantis. And JFK was talking about, getting rid of the CIA. He was talking about getting the United States back on the gold standard with our money. He actually printed up some bills based upon the value of gold. And of course, the globalists, of course, don't want that. They don't want that. And so the secret societies got rid of them. Of course, what they wanted was not an attacked America whatsoever. They wanted an absence of the American Republic. And they want this turned into a North American Union. And they want the North American Union eventually linked up with South America. Make that just all one government entity, just one socialist government entity. That's what the European Union's all about. Same idea. Eventually what they want is just an entire linked world, one world socialist government. We have a ruling elite, and then the rest of us indentured servants. But they want the world population decreased to 500 million, as is inscribed in the Georgia Guidestones, located here. That's what all the wars and famine are all about that are going on. Now you have the migrations into Europe. Europe is now in Sharia law phase 2. Europe is going to rapidly turn into Europistan. Canada has a massive influx of these Muslims, and is being certainly in Sharia law phase 1, moving into phase 2, and they want the same thing done to this area here, obviously. They want this all linked together. But all the socialist world government's going to be is simply a return to the despotic regimes, the tyrannical regimes of the past that went on for centuries and upon centuries in the ancient world. They're just trying to engineer a return to that. So I sincerely believe that the American Republic is the best government that was ever invented. Certainly not perfect, but the best governmental system that was ever devised by man. And we're the last great hope, I believe, of the Western world and of the free world. So I hope you folks derive some sort of value from today's discussion. Thanks a lot.